Hogs number 20 in the AP poll. Coach's poll has them at number 24. It looks like everybody except Mississippi State in the SEC West is at least getting votes in the AP poll. So that'll all stop sometime soon because SEC play is upon us. And we had a game last week involving Missouri and Kentucky, but we're not going in that direction. Let's talk with Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South, national reporter. Connor, you picked this one. You picked Arkansas to beat Texas. I don't know if you thought they'd bully them the way that they did, but, man, you got it right.
I'll tell you what, you hit the nail on the head right there. I thought Arkansas would win this game. I thought that crowd was going to be bananas. I thought it was going to follow a very similar script. Arkansas gets up early, kind of holds off Texas and makes Texas play from behind, puts pressure on a new starting quarterback playing in his first true road game. I didn't think it'd be that lopsided. I'll be honest with you. I did not see Arkansas getting after it on the ground like they did. Over 300 rushing yards in that game. And, you know, to be honest, guys, I know the final said 40-21. Didn't feel that close. It felt even more lopsided than that. I mean, I was amazed at the job that Arkansas's coaching staff did putting together that game plan. It was so effective. They did things to Hudson Card on the defensive side with Barry Odom that I feel like I need to go back and rewatch some of this stuff because he was totally perplexed. And the experience on that defense was massive. And seeing that play out and seeing how fired up they were, man, Texas didn't have a chance. This wasn't just same old Texas. This was new Arkansas. And that's what I thought was the difference on Saturday night.
Well, and then there's also, you know, this stable of running backs. And the offensive line got a great push, but the thing that sticks out about this offense right now is, and of course you gotta Connor include KJ Jefferson in that when it comes to, you know, guys running the football, but they all have different styles. There's size, there's speed, there's elusiveness. There's a guy that looks like he could be like a home run hitter, an AJ Green. This is a very impressive stable of running backs. I don't expect them to run for 7.1 yards per carry every game, but my gosh, even when Texas knew they were going to run it, they couldn't do anything about it.
You had 5 guys making highlight reel plays in the running game, and I thought the Rocket Sanders run where he just dragged that poor Texas defender the last 6 yards into the end zone. If you didn't watch that game, that play just told you everything you needed to know. This formula, in a strange way, is almost what Brett Bielema wanted to do at his peak. And it's obviously different with the tempo that Kendall Briles likes to run, and you see some of the creativity there where they had that play inside the 5. I think it was inside the 5, where Traylon Burks is lined up as the deep back. And then you do this little fake end around, and then it's a handoff to Dominique Johnson, who's playing fullback in that spot. And you see some of the nuance with Kendall Briles. And so it is kind of a modern take on that. And it is kind of nice to be able to have a variety of guys to turn to because the passing game really hasn't impressed much. I'll be honest. It has not been very good yet with KJ Jefferson. What if I told you that Traylon Burks is not going to have a game with 40-plus receiving yards through week 2, and Arkansas is going to be sitting there 2-0 with a win against Texas, a decisive win against Texas. It hasn't got going yet, and they're going to need it to get going if they're going to be able to kind of fight for that number 2 spot in the SEC West. But, man, I can't say enough good things about this ground game. It was really, really impressive against Texas.
It was, Connor, and, you know, just how many different guys were able to do it and have an impact was just phenomenal and great to watch. But back to the Arkansas defense and more of the Texas running game, Robinson, 19 carries, 69 yards, couldn't get any real traction. I think his longest run of the night was 20 yards. It was great to beat Texas, but would this kind of be the cherry on top? Do you think Arkansas ruined Robinson's Heisman hopes already in week 2?
Yeah, I mean, probably. If you're going to win it as a running back, you probably have to be on maybe not an undefeated team in this day and age because Christian McCaffrey had a really good case to win the Heisman in 2015 and lost out to Derrick Henry, who was on an undefeated team. But you have to at least be in that conversation. Texas is not going to be in the playoff conversation. They're just not. They are not at that level. They are too soft to be a true playoff contender. They're going to win some games in the Big 12, I believe that. But they're not going to be able to have one of those top 10 type of seasons. Not to take anything away from what Arkansas did, because the job that they did on Robinson was impressive. You're waiting for that big chunk play. That's what gets him going. That's what gets that Texas offense going. Didn't have a run longer than 20 yards. And in that setting, that is so important, because that was the play that could have taken the life out of that stadium. If Robinson rips off a 45, 50-yard run, suddenly you're kind of like, all right, you know what? Texas is here to play. It's Steve Sarkisian. This guy's been the best offensive mind in the sport for the last 2 years. They're going to get rolling. And that just never happened. And Texas felt like he was playing from behind the entire time. And you couldn't really use him in the way that you wanted to when you're down by several scores in the second half like that.
All right, Connor, we're halfway through the 2-game Texas portion of the season that you called for Arkansas to win both of those. Are you now more confident in that selection? And do you think that Arkansas can repeat the magic and blow out A&M, because they haven't really looked like world beaters either through 2 games?
Now, I'm not going to say that. I don't think that they're going to blow out A&M. I am standing by my original prediction, and that's kind of regardless of what happens with the Haynes King injury. That changes who A&M is. Zach Calzada came in, and for the vast majority of that game against Colorado, he did not look ready. And if that's the quarterback that Barry Odom is going to see in a couple of weeks, he's going to be licking his chops, man. That defense is going to get after him, and they're going to do things that are really going to frustrate him, and he is going to make mistakes. I feel confident in saying that. Now, if Haynes King comes back, that's a little bit different. I still think Barry Odom is going to be able to do enough things defensively to frustrate whoever A&M's starting quarterback is, and I am doubling down on that prediction. I don't know if there was a parlay or something like that. I probably should have got in on that. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
You could have gotten great odds.
Some good, dang, looking back on that, because I think that A&M does things very well that's going to frustrate Arkansas on the other side of it. And that's a game where you have to be able to try and have some sort of balance. And if you don't, and if this isn't one of those games where the passing game wakes up, then it's going to be a true 60-minute battle. I don't see that game script following the one that Texas did. Texas A&M is so much different up front. They really, really will get after you with the defensive line, with Peavy and Leal. Those guys are special. Mike Elko has a very good group, and they're not going to get pushed around in that same sort of way. The A&M offensive line is coming on strong, though the ground game still isn't quite there yet. I will, however, say that Arkansas wins that football game, and I think that there's a conversation to be had about Sam Pittman, Coach of the Year, all those things if that happens.
As far as the rest of the SEC over the weekend, one of the biggest thing, maybe the biggest thing that happened was Will Anderson going down with what looked like a leg injury against Mercer. I didn't watch that game, but I did see afterwards there was a lot of accusations of cheap shots coming from Alabama fans towards Mercer. But Anderson is the guy that, early in the season, is the hot choice for maybe the best defender in the country. And we always feel like there's somebody in the wings that's waiting to step in for Alabama as far as linebackers are concerned. But, Anderson felt like that he might have been the most important player defensively for them.
Massive news. If he's out for multiple weeks, we'll wait and kind of see what the injury report is on that. Fortunately, he walked off on his own power, so maybe that was just a precautionary type of deal. Early reports, I saw Aaron Suttles of The Athletic reported that he was not believed to be in jeopardy of suffering a serious injury. Again, we'll wait and see on that. But you're exactly right. There's a case to be made that he might be the best defender, not just on that Alabama defense, but in all of college football. As a true freshman last year, playing that jack linebacker position for Alabama, he led the country in pressures. I mean, this dude is a machine. He looked unblockable in that opener against Miami. And if he is out there every single time, he has to be accounted for. And that's a major question going into this weekend against Florida. If they're not going to have him, what's it going to look like rushing the passer? If it's Emory Jones, if it's Anthony Richardson, is Alabama able to get that pressure up front in the same way that they want? They already lost Chris Allen for the season to an injury that he suffered, broke his foot in the Miami game. So we'll kind of wait and see on that. But very significant SEC West injury news already.
I also saw, and this seemed like it would be a pretty good non-conference matchup. Mississippi State take down NC State 24-10, holding them to just 10 points. Couple of interceptions by the Mississippi State secondary. That felt like, not certainly not as big as Arkansas beating Texas, But a win for Mississippi State when they're, chosen 6th or 7th in the SEC West right now against a program in NC State that I think is okay. It felt like a pretty good win for Mike Leach.
Good win for Mike Leach. The offense still isn't there yet. It still doesn't truly look like the air raid, though I think Will Rogers has performed well enough so far. But the old Mike Tyson saying, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face? Mm-hmm. NC State in that game allowed an opening kickoff for a touchdown, and it almost looked like it threw everything off. Like, NC State should have come out and run the football against Mississippi State. Instead, I don't know what type of intel that Tim Beck, the offensive coordinator of NC State, got, but it was bad intel because he kept trying to attack those corners of Mississippi State, and that's a really bad idea. Manuel Forbes, Martin Emerson are one of the best cornerback duos, not just in the SEC, but in all of college football. And they just played right into Mississippi State's hands. So it was a weird game to see that play out like that. I mean, they threw the ball more times than Mississippi State. I don't know how you do that, even with the game flow. It wasn't like they were down 21 from the jump or anything. So, yeah, weird game, but ultimately a nice win for Mike Leach.
Connor, before we let you go, I do want to ask you more of a national question, and it's this. Is the Pac-12 actually legit with UCLA beating LSU last week and then Oregon beating Ohio State? Do we, as the rest of college football, actually need to pay attention what's going on in the West Coast?
You better pay attention to what's going on at those two places. Now, USC, Stanford, we'll kind of wait and see about that. Vandy will give us the ultimate litmus test against Stanford this week and see if that's worth paying attention to. But I think that Oregon's legit, and I predicted Oregon to win that game. I wish I went on more publications and said that they were going to beat Ohio State.
Should have added it to your parlay.
I should have. Man, I had some good calls this past weekend, which I was due for that after, some of the bad calls I had this offseason. But part of that was probably my blind love of Joe Moorhead and assuming that he was going to dial up the exact right looks. And sure enough, that's what he did in that game. But, I think there's something to be said. I think the Pac-12 has much better playoff chances right now than the Big Ten. And we'll wait and see kind of how this plays out with Penn State, with Iowa, because they look like the best two teams to get to the college football playoff this year for the Big Ten. But man, Oregon just took it to Ohio State. Ohio State was playing on its heels the entire game, and UCLA looks like it has things figured out with Chip Kelly. Nobody could watch that game against LSU a couple weeks ago and think that UCLA was a slacker. Those two teams are legit, and the Pac-12 looks like it's going to be in the playoff race for the duration of the regular season.
A couple of decent games this weekend. Maybe Alabama, Florida could be okay. But I look here at Penn State, Auburn, an out-of-conference game that might be the best. And you just mentioned Penn State, maybe the best opportunity for a Big Ten team to make the playoff now. Not if they don't beat Auburn. What do you have on that? And then we'll let you go.
Bo Nix on the road, hard pass.
Yeah,
hard pass.
I'm with you.
It's ugly, and against that defense, it's going to be really ugly. I think in the first whiteout in almost 2 years at Penn State, with the way that defense is flying around the football, I don't really give Bo Nix much of a chance in this one. The best chance that Auburn has is that duo that they have in the backfield with Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter. If those guys can get some chunk plays, which looks really difficult, then that's the only way you take that crowd out of the game, or you capitalize on maybe a Sean Clifford interception or something. I don't know. I have a hard time seeing Penn State score, or seeing Auburn score against Penn State, rather, and pull off a massive road victory. I think Penn State wins by multiple scores in that one.
I mean, they're averaging 61 points a game against Akron and Alabama State. So I might be with you on that too, Connor. Appreciate your time, and we'll always be talking on Mondays. Always appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, guys.
All right.
Appreciate it, Connor.
Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South. Did you see the final scores for Auburn in their first two?
Yeah, they beat Alabama State like 62-0.
Yeah, but they held the wrong team to no points. They opened up the season with Akron, and Akron is the Zips. They should have shut out the Zips. Come on.
Got to shut out the Zips.
Got to know which team you're going to shut out. You got to plan these things better. Come on, Brian Harsin. Can't you get your stuff in order? 877-377-6963. We have plenty of reaction coming from Arkansas blowing out Texas. And Bob from Hot Springs says Clyde Smackover Scott's number 12 is retired. However, reused with family permission for Steve Little. And Brandon Burlsworth's number 77 also retired. Very good reasons. All right, we'll be right back to wrap up the first
It's
half.
that time of the year again, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all of the pro and college football action this season. Get all of the updated odds, props, and contests, including the online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest, the world's largest 200,000 NFL Survivor contest, open now at BetOnline. Here's what you have to do. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 100% welcome bonus. Take advantage of their opening day super promo. Make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager's going to be refunded for up to $25 for new customers only when signing up and using the promo code NFL100. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.